Main focus is on the late TRS, Professor T.R. Subramaniam, the celebrated vocalist. And very unfortunately, this is an issue that I had been planning for quite some time, and we could not bring it out in his lifetime. In fact, he was eagerly anticipating the November issue because we were covering him. And actually, I got the main cover story a day after his death. So it's a very sad thing. But I think it's come out very well. People have written with a great deal of affection about him and about his mastery of the medium, mastery of his art, his very original thoughts on the subject, knack of being present in the midst of controversy quite often. And it has come out as a very affectionate tribute to him. That's the main, the cover story this time. But also, this issue has come to represent almost every aspect that we generally cover, or every constituency that we address. So it has something for the young people and something about technology. We have something called the Music Guru Way, which is an app. Music Guru is an app teaching Carnatic music, in which I think Shashikaran is also involved. And we have something on Punjabi theatre, which is theatre is something that we introduced fairly recently. And in addition to Indira Parthasarathy's usual column, in which he writes about the first Tamil play called Pratapa Chandra Vilasam, we also have an article on Punjabi theatre, which is a very unusual article because it's about the rural ambience of Punjabi theatre, especially at a time when Punjabi as a language has been dropped by Delhi University from its curriculum. And we have Chitra Madhavan, one of our heritage experts, writing about a small temple there in a place called Pullamangai, where the Nataraja is prominent. So we have this heritage series in which Chitra writes about sculpture depicting the arts, music and dance. So it's called The Divine Dancer. Then we have our regular stamp series on T.T. Krishnamachari, who was a great patron of music. Our Hindustani music expert Deepak Raja has contributed a piece on Jana Sammohini, which is an equivalent of our Balaji in Hindustani. So he writes on some interesting ragas in Hindustani music in a series. So this time it's about Jana Sammohini. Then we have our usual Generation Next and Young Voices, plus an article on something called the Archive of Contemporary Music in New York City, where Americans have started an initiative of collecting music from all parts of the world, and Indian music very prominently. So we have tried, which also means that we are now finding writers from around the world increasingly. So the New York piece is written by somebody who lives in Boston, Shushita Rao, and then a young NRA musician, Sushma Somashekaran, who lives in Singapore and divides the time between Singapore and Chennai. She does that series called Young Voices. And of course Kalidas, our veteran Mridanga Vidwan, writes on future talents in Carnatic music, while Nandini Ramani does the same for dance, for Bharatanatyam and other dance. So both of them are featured in this issue. So in this issue we have also introduced a new feature called Shruti Fiction, and this time it is the first part of a two-part translation of Kalki Krishnamurthy's novella or a long short story called Thiruvalundur Sivakkolundu. It's about Nasara Vidwan and his problems. and it's a romance actually. Ends in tragedy, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, this is something we introduced online some time ago. We've been carrying fiction on our arts, music and dance, and this is the first time we have introduced it in print, and hopefully this will be a regular feature of Shruti. So it's been translated by Gauri Ramnarayan, who is Kalki's granddaughter. So hopefully we'll find a readership for this. It's an experiment we are trying, and our challenge is always how to retain our present readership with an average age of maybe 60 or so, or at least 50, and at the same time attract young readers. So it's a very tricky balancing act. So I don't know. Hopefully with Shruti fiction we're going in the right direction. So it's a fairly all-round issue, I would say, because we have covered almost everything that we try to cover during a year in this one particular issue. The only omission is Vedavali's column, Sangeeta Kalanidhi, R. Vedavali's column, where she talks about some nuances of Carnatic music. But otherwise, almost everything has been covered in this issue. All our territory has been more or less comprehensively